And now we're going to go into the topic matter, which was brought up a few days ago by Queen Edwina. And we're talking about apartheid. Now, obviously, there's a lot of apartheid going on within the continent of Africa. But at the same time, we want to talk about it globally. So without further ado, Queen Edwina, when it comes in regards to apartheid, the floor is yours to kick us off with this subject matter.
Thank you, Brother Reggie. Give thanks. And I thank you for the opportunity as well. So I would first like to just say that what is happening in South Africa at the moment is that we're witnessing xenophobic violence, and we're being told or informed by the South Africans, the black South Africans, that they're more than annoyed with the people, the foreigners who were in the country and who were working there, taking their jobs. And so the first of all, foreigners is a term where you talk about somebody who possibly doesn't look like you. And let's face it, okay, if you are from Nigeria, if you are from Cameroon, if you are from DR Congo, if you are from Tanzania, if you are from Kenya, if you are from Mozambique or Angola, you're African. If you're from South Africa, you're African. If you have the complexity of a black skin, if you have melanin, you're an African. And remember, Peter Tosh sang that to remind us we're all African. If you have if you are black and you have the identity of an African, which is the melanin, heavily melanated people are Africans. So when you talk about foreigners, who are you talking about? So it seems what's happening is that a lot of other Africans who maybe weren't brought up in South Africa are facing discrimination, harassment, attacks, displacement, and rising social tension. So you have political groups like Operation Dudula who are wanting to deport and exercise street justice on other Africans. And this is what is happening. Now, when we talk about the Right Honourable Robert Nesta Marley, in the libation, his name was mentioned. What was the message that he came with to the world? What was the message? The message was one love. Have we forgotten what one love means? Have we forgotten the messenger of Jah, the Almighty? What he said was he would like to see brothers and sisters getting on with each other, helping each other. That message of one love means let's get together and feel all right. It means caring, sharing, helping your brothers, helping your sisters, helping the children to grow up and live a fruitful life, a worthwhile life. Because don't forget, we are simply spirits having a human experience. We came into this world with nothing, not a stitch of clothing on our backs. We came into this world with nothing, and believe you me, we're leaving with nothing. So whilst we are here, we don't know how long we've got here, but whilst we are here, the message is to do good, and good will follow you. There is such a thing as karma. Do good and good will follow you. Help your brother, help your sister whilst we're here. Why can we not have a world where everybody gets on with everybody? Why are we so busy fighting each other over silly nonsense? The colour of your skin. Nonsense. Your country, where you live. It's nonsense. Don't forget. Now I'm going to quote from the Bible here, Psalms 24. Psalms is the only part of the Bible I really, really take note of, because these are praises unto the Most High. These are songs by King David to the Most High. And if you read the Kebra Nagast, the Book of Kings that was originated in Ethiopia, King David has the same lineage as His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. And Rastas, true Rastas, we follow his Imperial Majesty. We follow him. So Psalms 24, a Psalm of David, reads, "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the earth and all that dwell therein. For he hath founded it upon the seas, and established it upon the floods. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully." So it tells you right there, the earth don't belong to you. It don't belong to me. We're not here forever. So brothers, sisters, stop the fighting. Stop it. You know, in Africa, which is my continent, Africa is the land where my ancestors were stolen, kidnapped, taken forcibly against their will, and placed in the Caribbean or South America or other places that we were taken to against our will in order to slave for the colonizers for 400 years, from 1550 until slavery was stopped. However, we as a diaspora, with our economic wealth, we would like to receive reparations in order to help our nation heal. And we don't see why we're being ignored. We have CARICOM in the Caribbean, which is calling for reparations for our people. And really, be fair. Let's have some justice on this, because it was our ancestors. We're only talking about 400 years ago. It was our ancestors who built up the West, and the West continues to underdevelop our continent that we were stolen from. There is a book by one of our great intellectuals. His name is Walter Rodney, and he wrote a book called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And it's a book that I can recommend. He unfortunately was assassinated. Which, remember Bob Marley sang, How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? This is what happens to our leaders, because ultimately the West wants to keep control of Africa. And remember, there's 54 countries in Africa, Nigeria being the most populated. Next comes Ethiopia, Egypt, then DR Congo. Let me talk a little bit about DR Congo, because DR Congo exports 9/10 of critical supplies globally for electronics and renewable energy technology. DR Congo. And yet they call DR Congo the most poorest country in the world. Stop fighting each other. Look at where we are. Look at the situation. Africa has to unite. Because if it does that, it will be the most richest continent on the earth. And they know that. These oligarchs, these billionaires, they know that. Stop fighting amongst yourselves. Unite, as His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I said. And he started the OAU, Organization of African Unity, in order for Africa to unite. 54 countries come together. You know, we have to come together and unite. I'm talking about one country, DR Congo, that has resources that's being extracted and literally stolen, like we were stolen, the resources in the Congo. Diamonds, gold, copper, rubber, lithium, cobalt, zinc, silver, cadmium, germanium, uranium, platinum, monazite, petroleum, iron ore, coal. You know, I mean, you don't have to be a genius to work out that if Africa unites, like Bob Marley has said, like Walter Rodney has said, like the Honourable Marcus Mosiah Garvey has said, like Muhammad Ali must have said, like Stephen Bantu Biko, like Morris Bishop, Dr. John Henry Clark. You know, Africa would be top and should be top. And this is not rocket science. We all know this. So let's be fair. Let's have real justice. And real justice means don't be fighting amongst yourselves. Unite. Unite and fight. Something else about the Congo that I'd like to mention. Over 30% of the world's diamonds come from Congo. Diamonds. And what happened to the first elected president of Congo? People must know. His name was Patrice Emery Lumumba. And Lumumba was murdered by the Belgium on specific orders from Belgium government, Belgium command. And that was because he was a Pan-Africanist and he believed in uniting Africa. They put a hideous crime on him. And I just want to give an alert here because of the way that they killed him. Just want to give a trigger alert. What happened was he was shot, and he was thrown into a shallow grave, later dug up under the instructions of the Belgian command. He was hacked into pieces, which is sick, but this was under Belgium's government. He was dissolved in acid or burned by fire. And he passed January the 17th, 1961. And this crime has to be prosecuted. Has to be. His daughter, I am hoping that she takes the Belgian government to court over her father's murder. And I do believe that a Belgian court ruled in March of this year that a former Belgian diplomat, 93-year-old Etienne Davignon, will stand trial in connection with the killing. And so, you know, all we're asking for is justice. And let us hope that we get justice for the Congo. So I'll just speak quickly about the xenophobia that's going on in South Africa, where my Black brothers and sisters are taking up arms against other Black brothers and sisters who come from the same continent. As I've mentioned, there is such a thing as the Stockholm Syndrome, which you may have heard of. This is where people who suffer trauma or abuse actually develop feelings towards their captors or abusers as a coping mechanism. And it seems to me that since the 1880s, I'm talking about the Boer Wars in South Africa, where we've got a situation now where you have foreigners, let's face it, the foreigners who invaded South Africa, colonizers. They're there and they're the minority, and yet we're not asking them to leave. You're not asking them to leave. You know, and I always mention, when I grew up, I watched TV as a youth. 1976, I watched the Soweto uprisings on television. I watched the Sharpeville massacre. I watched when a 12-year-old brother of mine, Hector Peterson, was mercilessly murdered, killed, shot, dead by the police. And who got done for that? Did anyone get done for that? Was anyone taken to court for that? A 12-year-old, Hector Peterson, he was on the street protesting. He didn't want to learn Afrikaans above his own language. Why should he? Why should he? The invaders came, the colonizers came, and as you can see, in Africa, which was colonized by the Europeans following the Berlin Conference in 1884 to 1885, where the colonial countries concluded that they would colonize Africa. Africa was sliced up like a cake, sliced our continent up like a cake, and decided to invade the continent and took certain parts for themselves and called it this and called it that. Gave them names. Rhodesia, Yeah, no. And these people are in Africa. And I'm saying this, I'm saying it just once. And it was said by the Right Honourable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. I'm here because my parents came to this country legally because they were asked to come here. When they got here, they were told no dogs, no Irish, no blacks. So they couldn't even get a place to stay. The hardship they faced, they were asked to come here and work here, asked by government. Because after the war, the Second World War, Britain needed help to build up the country. And my parents came from the Caribbean, highly qualified people. And when they got here, they were only allowed to work menial jobs. Now, I was born in this country. I have children, I have grandchildren, I've got a great grandchild coming. Where do I belong? Where do I belong? But when I see what's going on in South Africa, I say to my brothers and sisters, stop it. We're African, whether at home or abroad. We're in the diaspora. And just mentioning the diaspora, sorry, previously I said we were stolen from Africa, taken against our will, which we were, and we were put in prison camps. Not what do they call them? Malcolm, help me out here. What were they called? In
what are you referring to?
The places where we as a people were taken to work on the plantations.
Plantations.
Yeah.
Plantations.
Yeah. What I'm saying is a plantation was simply a prison camp because we weren't allowed to leave and we were treated in a most despicable and sadistic way. And I mentioned we'd been taken to the Caribbean, we were taken to parts of South America, including Guyana and Brazil. But I forgot to mention our brothers and sisters, our beautiful brothers and sisters in the States, obviously, this in America. And it so hurts my heart to see how we are being treated there, my brothers and sisters in America. If you're black in America, Lord, please help them, Jah. Please help our brothers and sisters in America, because what is going on there is so sick, is the only word that comes to mind. The way we are treated in America. So blatant, so overtly racism, evil, wickedness. But we won't forget you, our brothers and sisters in America. And those that return to Ghana in the year of return, so many, and it's so beautiful to see so many brothers and sisters who are able to relocate to Africa, including yourself, Brother Reggie. You know, and Ghana is one place where there's an African village that quite a few African American brothers and sisters have relocated and built their homes. And, you know, I just give thanks because that is like a beacon of hope, a beacon of light to say it can be done despite no effort being put in by the government in Ghana. Now, come on. You've got brothers and sisters who were stolen from the continent 400 years ago, and they've come back to the homeland, and you're not helping them out. What are you doing? John Mahama, Prime Minister of Ghana. Deal with the people. They come with economic wealth. Where's the plan to integrate them back home? Where's the plan? Because if you don't have a plan to reintroduce in a safe way, we're going to get what we're getting in South Africa, where they're going to be called foreigners. Foreigners, you know something? That's a European term. Divide and rule. Europeans are just, where's your morals? Where's your ethics? Where's your love? Where's your peace for your brother and your sisters? Find it in your heart. Come with some love. Help each other. Please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sister Edwina.
Thank you. Thank you, Queen Edwina. Thank you so much. And without further ado, we have Brother X, who's our special guest today. Brother X, for those people who are listening to you for the first time, would you like to give a proper introduction to yourself before we get into your side of this topic matter of apartheid globally with our melanated or African people?
Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction, Reggie. I've been born in England, lived in England all my life. My father was really interested in politics, and I suppose I got interested in politics at an early age, and obviously got influenced by growing up in the 60s and 70s and 80s and living in the inner city, and my life experiences being a young Afro-Caribbean, quote, Black person in a city in England. And yeah, I've basically been interested in African history for maybe over 10 years, and just through a lot of what Sister Edwina was sharing, through the music of people like Bob Marley, a few books that I've read, not as many as I should have read at a younger age, but then did an African history course with a brother from London, and yeah, it helped to link a lot of the issues that were missing. There's a great book called The Miseducation of the Black Child, and I think going through a British education system, that's basically what we get. We don't get a world history or an African history. We get a European perspective on how the world was, or how it should be, and obviously it just confuses a lot of people. Yeah, moving on to the topic at hand. A lot of, I mean, I think Sister Edwina covered a lot of issues there. I mean, maybe too many for me to speak on in this one podcast. But I think I mean, a lot of what I tried to understand, and I mean, it is trying to understand through a lot of the history and trying to understand about what is happening to African people at home and in the diaspora, is trying to understand this coordinated global attack on people with melanin. I mean, basically, we have been taught to hate ourselves. We've been taught to hate people who look like us. and we've been basically taught to love Europeans. And I mean, yeah, that might tie in with the Stockholm syndrome, which Sister Edwina was talking about. And I like to quote a great teacher, Dr. Frances Cresswell's, and her one of her teachers, Dr. Neely Fuller. And I am going to butcher the quote, but the quote is, if you don't understand racism, white supremacy, what it is, where it comes from, and how it affects us, everything that you think you understand will only confuse you. And what we see in South Africa at the moment is a lot of confusion. But as we know, if you've been under a system which constantly is oppressing melanin and making you hate yourself and making you hate people who look like you, who are you going to attack? You are going to attack, firstly, yourself. You're going to hate yourself. And you're going to attack people who look like you, which is why we have the issues that are going on in South Africa. And I just happened to, I didn't actually watch the whole film. It was one of Spike Lee's films. It's, I think it's Chirac. And at the beginning, there was some figures that he puts up on the screen. And it was like the wars that America fought in the Middle East, the Afghanistan war, and I think the Iraq war. It gave the numbers of troops that were killed, and I think the numbers were in like the 2000s in Iraq and 2000 roughly. I mean, this is only a rough estimate of what he said. And then it gave the numbers for the brothers and sisters who have been killed in the inner city boroughs in Chicago, and it was in the upwards of like 7,000. And I mean, that is shocking to think that we have been under such an attack on ourselves, or there's been such a global attack on people with melanin, and we end up so confused, so hating ourselves, so hating people who look like us, that the outcome of that would be that 7,000 young people born in inner city Chicago would basically kill themselves or kill each other. It's total madness, but this is the system that we are under, and it's trying to understand that system. And yes, we want to love each other, and we want to heal each other, and we want to live in an abundant place. But if you don't understand the system that you're under, you're not going to love yourself. You're not going to love other people who look like you. You are going to hate yourself. Around the world that has happened to people with melanin. And again, trying to understand that we are people with melanin. Well, let's go further back. When in the Middle Ages, when the Europeans first started to go circumvent the globe and go around the world, and they came to these islands in these boats that got lost or wherever they happened to land. And what did they find? They found virtually every time they landed, they found people with melanin. And if they had relations with the women of those continents, all those islands, and they stayed around long enough, those sailors would find out that their offspring would usually look like the mothers. So they soon realized that melanin was very, very powerful, as everybody who's ever come into contact with melanin realizes that melanin is one of the most powerful essences in the universe. And so whenever they decided, maybe it was at that Berlin conference, Sister Edwina referred to, that they were going to have a coordinated global attack on melanin, because they realized that melanin on the planet is in the majority, has always been in the majority, and will always be in the majority. And that so-called whiteness or albinism, which is how Dr. Welton describes it, is in the minority. So if you bought any species or any set of people, set of animals under threat, what did they decide to do? They decide to survive, and that's what we see. The Europeans, who are in the minority on the planet, have created a system which, because they are in the minority, has to constantly be on the attack 24/7. And if we don't understand that, which we don't understand because we've been told that we are the minority. We've been told that Black and brown people on this planet are the minority, and that Europeans and so-called white people are the majority. And of course, that isn't the fact. The reality is that Black and brown people are the majority on this planet, but we haven't been taught that. And Europeans are the minority. We've been taught to worship a Jesus or a religious figure that doesn't look like us. And we keep wondering, how come we stay confused? We've been confused in the past. And how come in essence, we can't come together, as Sister Edwina was asking, and why we can't plan for the future? And it's because we're under 24/7 attack. And so it's trying to decipher this system, decipher why it was created, how it was created, and understand that these Europeans, because they're such a minority, will use all the resources that they can get their hands on to basically survive, because they know they can't compete against a global majority of melanin, which outnumbers them. I don't know what the figures are, like 8-1 on the planet. So that's beginning to understand why we see what is happening in South Africa, why we see what's happening in America, why we see what's happening globally. So yeah, that's what I'm about to add for the moment. Yeah, I mean, we can discuss more.
Thank you so much, Brother X. Thank you for your introduction. For all the listeners out there, I know I speak on behalf of all of us when we say it's a pleasure and an honor. And we have been talking about apartheid here on the Art of the Covenant podcast. And my final thoughts, based off of what Queen Edwina and Brother X have said. I mean, I've been over in Africa for a while, and I've lived in America, I've lived in the UK, and I see it everywhere I go. There's always been the propaganda of, Reggie, you look like this. Reggie, you must be that. Reggie, you must. And I automatically identify slaves. A slave is someone who has taken on the form of the oppressor in order to keep the plantation running, mentally, metaphorically speaking, or just in general. And my thing is to where I used to get angry, but then I had to slap myself in the face, metaphorically speaking, and say, Reggie, don't get angry. You know who the enemy is. You know who the enemy's allies are. Don't be anything like them. Don't feed into this, because if you do, you're feeding into a system that shouldn't exist to begin with. And if you give it power, it'll continue to grow. But if you don't, it'll starve itself to death. And that's what I've been doing. So every time I'm in the motherland and I see people who are divisive, who are feeding into, inhumane behavior, slavery, oppressiveness, I just step away. And if I was taught and raised, if anybody ever puts their hands on you, you have every right to defend yourself. So make sure you document everything. Make sure that you protect yourself at all costs, and make sure you just know how phenomenal you are. So that way the enemy and the enemy's slaves don't try to lead you to think otherwise. Again, this is Reggie Haynes. I'm so honored and grateful to have Brother X and Queen Edwina on another edition of the Art of the Covenant podcast, a special get well wishes to Brother Kwame. He will be with us next time. But for those people who are tuned in, we really appreciate you guys tuning in on the RHTV podcast network. We're going to take our first commercial break, but we'll be back to talk more about apartheid that's happening globally to our melanated people. You guys stay tuned. I hope this is on. All right. My name's Comedic. I'm out here in the street and I'm hearing some type of siren that goes off with an announcement stating that all crime, including murder, is legal for 12 consecutive hours. They call me Clune. And you don't know me yet. But soon, you will. YR, Comedic, Reggie, I've come from different dimensions to defeat you. And not even the universe's greatest hero, Legacy, will stop me. And we're back on the RHTV podcast network. You guys are tuned in to another edition of the Art of the Covenant podcast. I'm here with Queen Edwina and Brother X, and we've been talking about apartheid. That's not just happening within the continent of Africa, but also globally. And, Queen Edwina and Brother X have been, hitting it hard, talking about some hard-hitting truths. And we're going to have the final thoughts from both Queen Edwina and Brother X, but we're going to start off with Queen Edwina. And Queen Edwina, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Give thanks, Brother Reggie, and give thanks also to Brother Malcolm X for that really well balanced and informative speech on how it is, on how things are in terms of what is happening in South Africa currently. So I'd just like to finish off by stating that we're not foreigners on this earth. We're not foreigners to each other. We are African, and we're all African. And I say that because if you think back to the earliest human bones that have been found, dating back to 3.2 million years ago, there is a collection of several hundred pieces of fossilized bone comprising 40% of the skeleton of a female discovered in 1974. So not that long ago, really. And she was discovered in Ethiopia on the shores of Lake Omo. That's where she was discovered, the earliest human being bones, which clearly that means we all come from Africa, specifically Ethiopia. That's where her bones were found. And just to state that Ethiopia is mentioned on the second page of the Bible, and it's mentioned in Psalms 87 as well. So you know, you put two and two together, and you get four. We're all Africans, all of us. So let's stop the dibby-dibby. Let's stop the fighting. Cut it out. Isn't it better to live in love than live with war and strife and harm and hurt and hate? Yes, it is better to be loving one another. What's wrong with that? That's what Bob Marley said. What's wrong with loving one another? Peace and joy, let's get together. What's wrong with you, my brother? Soldier, I say. I'd like to just mention a couple of books that, you know, have helped me to get to where I am. And one of them is called The Racism Handbook for People Classified as Black. And it's a guide to how racism really works. As Brother Malcolm X stated, under a system of racism, racism teaches you to hate yourself. And therefore, if you hate yourself, how can you love other people? You have to learn to love yourself, and then you can love other people accordingly. So the Racism Handbook, Volume 1, is by Howard Dean Johnson. And if you know about racism, like the brilliant Dr. Frances Creswell Welsing has stated, you know, read, look her up, Google her. She's an absolutely fascinating psychiatrist, Dr. Frances Creswell Welsing, a psychiatrist. It's also a book by the Hidden Truth Academy people called Free Your Mind, and that's by the investigator, also known as Drew Muhammad. Go onto his website, have a look, and that book is once again called Free Your Mind. And then there is a book that talks extensively about melanin and what it is. Melanin is a complex biological pigment with roles beyond skin color. Melanin is the skin that Black people are wrapped up in. And this book is by the great Leon Marshall. And he talks about melanin is a natural pigment found in the skin, hair, eyes, certain parts of the brain. It exists primarily in two forms: eumelanin, which is dark brown or black, and phenylalanine, which is reddish yellow. Beyond determining pigmentation, melanin plays critical roles in protecting against UV radiation, regulating oxidative stress, and supporting neurological and reproductive health. That book, once again, you can find it on Amazon or contact Leon Marshall directly. And it's called The Hidden Science of Melanin. And that is a great book if you are melanated. And even if you're not, you will have some melanin in you, even if you're white. And you can find that book interesting. There's one more book I'd like to mention that I'm reading at the moment, and it's by Neil Mayers. That's Neil, N-E-I-L, Mayers, M-A-Y-E-R-S. And it's called The Lie We Call School. And he is not playing in this book. It's a serious book, asking serious questions and setting it out how it is in relation to the school system in the UK from the perspective of the children who are being failed by the school system. So his book is called The Lie We Call School. He also has other books out called Gifted at Primary Failing by Secondary. And he's a great author, pulls no punches, tells it how it is. So I'd just like to mention the countries again in Africa. 54 beautiful, wonderful countries. And Ethiopia, as you may not know, is the only country in Africa that was never colonized. So it retains its ancient history. And also, Ethiopia has amazing, beautiful landscape and beautiful churches, castles, beautiful people. And don't forget, Ethiopia's calendar is not the same as the Western calendar, which is 12 months. Ethiopia has 13 months of sunshine, 13 months. Ethiopia did not change the way it calculates the calendar. It's stayed as an ancient country, and it's kept and retained its ancient culture. So they have 13 months of sunshine. They have the most beautiful churches. If you go to Lalibela, there's 11 churches, I think, which are actually cut out of the earth, and that was done in centuries ago. You know, and it's amazing. It's a bit like if you go to Egypt to view the pyramids there. How did that happen? Who did that, and how? How is it possible? It will really make you think. But, you know, there's so many beautiful countries in Africa. Kenya for safari, beautiful pyramids in the Sudan, you know, Morocco, Ghana, Madagascar, Cote d'Ivoire, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, brilliant countries, beautiful Sahel combination there. So I just, you know, would like to say Africa is a continent, and Africa has to unite and will unite. And with that unite will come success, economic power, and put Africa where it should be. Not the poorest continent on the earth, but the richest. Give thanks, brother Reggie and Malcolm X. Give thanks.
Give thanks, Queen Edwina. Thank you so much for your final thoughts on the topic matter of apartheid. Now we're going to turn things over to you, Brother X, with your final thoughts on this topic matter. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Brother Reggie. And thank you for those thoughts, Sister Edwina. I'm not going to go on too long. I'd just like to say thank you to both of you for inviting me on the podcast. I'd like to recommend an influential book, and I'd also like to say it's never too late to come to the subject of African history. I came to it fairly late, like a lot of people. I was basically told that the African people didn't have a history. I remember standing in front of a teacher at middle school, I think it was, and told, African, quote, black people, you never had any history. You were always enslaved people. And when that person was standing in front of me, I knew they were lying, and it was a European person who was standing in front of me, and I knew they were lying. And the thing was, in actuality, they did me a favor, because it made me curious. You know, I thought, this person is lying, and why are they lying, and what are they trying to hide? Because there's obviously something there that they didn't want me to know. So it made me curious, and it took quite a while for me to find the knowledge. Because back in the 70s, it's not like it is now, where you can just Google different books, different articles, and find the information. So I would just say it's never too late, and to respect our ancestors, and to also build the knowledge for our children and our children's children, that we have to discover the history of Africa is so rich, and it's not just a history of Africa, it's a history of human beings on this planet. That is African history. As Sister Edwina said, Europeans, in their DNA, they have African blood in them, even though they can deny it. African people were the first people on this planet. So they came from us, and they've lost their melanin, and they become scared, and they become frightened, and they're doing everything to deny their African heritage and deny their humanity, which is why they act in the psychopathic way that they do. And it's for us to understand that, not to war with them as they war with us, but to try and understand, and firstly, and then secondly, plan how we're going to cope with this constant 24/7, 365 days attack on people with melanin. Because they told us to forgive and forget and turn the other cheek, and as a strategy, it doesn't always work, and we find that a lot of people with melanin get hurt and get harmed, and we have to really understand before we make our plans. So yeah, it's never too late to come to African history. A book that I would recommend, and it was the person who taught me, is Robin Walker. Any of his books, leaflets, pamphlets. Maybe next time when I'm on, I can give you his website. But yeah, Robin Walker, the history man. If you just type that name into the search bar, you'll be able to come across some of his work. And yeah, thanks again for inviting me onto the podcast, and I look forward to being on again in the future.
No, the pleasure's been all mine, Brother X. And for all those listeners out there, we thank you so much, Brother X, for coming on to be our special guest. Again, we are sending out our best wishes for Elder Kwame. We know that he's going to heal, properly, and then he's going to come back better than ever when you guys tune into another edition of the Art of the Covenant podcast. I've been your host, Reggie Haynes, and my final thoughts on everything, my closing statements or quote would be, those who are divided are easily conquered by evil. So we've been talking about apartheid and how there's a lot of people out there within the motherland across the globe who are always looking at themselves and looking at each other as enemies. That is slave-mindedness at its fullest. But you always look at the oppressor, the one who led you to be that way, as your savior. That's backwards thinking. Start thinking the correct way. Know who your enemy is. Know who your people are. And never try to harm your people. I'm all for protecting your home. I'm all for protecting unity. I'm all for us abolishing the slaves within our communities or sending them back to where they came from with their oppressor, because we already know how the oppressor views them and how they're going to treat them. So if they want to be a slave, that's fine. But as far as us, the true people, the true kings and queens who live by that on a day-to-day basis and who know ourselves, know that if we know ourselves, we would never degrade ourselves and each other. We are on the path of unity. We are on the path of truth. We are on the path of making sure that we continue to progress globally as a people, and nothing will stand in our way. Like I said, divided, you are easily conquered. The more divided you are, the more easily conquered you are by evil. Do not be divided. Unify on all accounts with those who are not slave-minded and oppressive-minded, and we'll be just fine. Again, this is Reggie Haynes. You have tuned in to another edition of the Art of the Covenant podcast on the RHTV Podcast Network. Until next time, we are signing off. Peace and love.